Hello and welcome back to another Blu-ray review, and I've been debating for the past minute and a half over whether I should try and figure out a new way to open these things, because just hello and well, I don't know, like, you know, when you just do something so often it's just muscle memory, you're not even thinking about it, then all of a sudden you just think about it, and I just think hello, and it's always the head tilt forward, hello and welcome back to another Blu-ray review. Like, I'm trying to change it up, nothing's working, we'll roll with it, you can have that for free. Today we're going to be talking about the second film in the Hopping Mad Blu-ray release from Eureka, and the third film in the Mr. Vampire series, and that film is Mr. Vampire 3. And I am in love with this series. 2 movies in, I'm in. Like, it's at this point I'm in the bag for anything this franchise is going to throw at me. So this is the third film in the series, released in 1987, I believe, starring Richard Ng and Lam Ching-ying, and we're going to talk about it. And I'm going to get my booklet out so I can get some of the actors and character names at least somewhat close to what they actually are, and not just saying Richard Ng's character. I'm trying to get a little bit less glare on that case on the shelf in the background that you're not going to be looking at really. Neither will you be looking at my face. You'll probably just be listening to this review, and all the clips that I put in will be for naught. Oh, and it's here we go. We're going rogue on this review. We're peeling back the curtain just a little bit, and that glare is driving me nuts. Okay, let's hope that a ghostly presence doesn't disturb the Blu-ray behind me, so meticulously placed, again, for you to not really see because it's slightly out of focus as well. Anyway, Mr. Vampire 3 was directed, as are most of the films in this set, by Ricky Lau, and produced by Sammo Hung, and stars Lam Ching-ying as Uncle Nine, Richard Ng as Uncle Ming, and Billy Lau as Captain Chiang, Pauline Wong as Devil Lady, and David Liu or Louis, and Ho Kin Wai as the 2 noted ghosts in the film. And then there's also the little cameo scene that's credited there in the booklet. I really got a vibe from this film of Chinese ghost story, and that made me so happy. I've said it before, I'll say it another 20 times, I'm sure. A Chinese Ghost Story is one of my all-time favorite films. Randomly watched it many years ago and just completely fell in love with it. I'd never really considered the fact that there might be more movies like that were made in Hong Kong the same year that it came out. Like, you know, there's definitely like a block in my mind where I just thought there's no way, and I'm not even going to let myself believe that there are other films out there like A Chinese Ghost Story, because I'd just be disappointed. And in a way that's true, because Mr. Vampire 3 is not like A Chinese Ghost Story, but there are flashes of it. You know, there's a sequence in the woods, and I'm just the way that it's shot, the way that it's lit, you know, the supernatural elements. I'm like, holy shit, this is A Chinese Ghost Story-ish. You know, even like some of the actors, you know. So, well, maybe not actually, because there's one actor from A Chinese Ghost Story who's in the film for about a minute. But regardless, I'm getting that feel of it. And that is just, I don't know, it's fun. And it's a genre that I really enjoy. And I've found myself really enjoying. And the horror comedy genre in general, you know, this is something that has been around for a long time. But it's something that I've really enjoyed in films like An American Werewolf, in London, stuff like Shaun of the Dead. You know, the horror comedy genre is, I mean, you can go really far out there with, what is it called? The Mel Brooks classic Young Frankenstein, which is, you know, more like parody, and even stuff like Carry On Screaming. You know, I love the horror comedy genre. And A Chinese Ghost Story isn't strictly comedy, there are comedic parts. But Mr. Vampire 3 does lean way more into the comedy side of things. And I really enjoyed where that sat for me as a film and as an enjoyable experience. So the film centers on Richard Ng's character, who, Uncle Ming, who is this, you know, he's this Taoist priest who's fallen by the wayside. Perhaps he didn't fully commit to his training, and never really achieved the full status of like a Taoist kind of master, or he just things have gone bad for him. We don't really know, but what we do know right from the get-go at the beginning of this film, Mr. Vampire 3, is that he is making his living as essentially an exorcist for hire, going to people's houses and ridding them of their ghostly nuisances in their house. Only he's enlisted the help of two ghosts to pretend to be these menaces, these spooky specters that are kind of messing with these people, and he's gonna valiantly vanquish them. Only they're not the real problem, but he's conning people out of their money, and he's kind of done a 180 from what the Taoist way, I suppose, would have someone chart their life out for of this kind of. I mean, I don't know much about Taoism, let's put it that way, but I know that it there is some sense of honor and duty to that, I would think, and doing things the way that they should be done. And he's completely going against that and just being a con man, a shyster. And he's got these two ghosts who are kind of working for him. And that's how he's making his money. That's how he's living his life. And then we have Lam Ching-ying, who is a genuine Taoist kind of master. And he's kind of in some ways what Richard Ng could have been. And there's a reflection of that, when those two characters meet up. And he comes into the same kind of area that Lam Ching-ying is practicing from. And Lam Ching-ying has his disciples and everything, and they're kind of dealing with this dispute with these horse thieves, who kind of turn out to be these kind of supernatural or like unnaturally powerful enemies. And that's kind of the crux of the film, in which there are no vampires. Mr. Vampire 3, and there are no vampires. Now, the title of the box set, Hopping Mad, they're about the hopping vampires. And so when I first saw Mr. Vampire 2 and they're hopping around, I'm like, okay, that's what we're dealing with here. No. In Mr. Vampire 3, not only do the villains not hop, they're not vampires. It's a ghost movie. It's a demon ghost movie. And we have this kind of female ringleader of these bad guys, Devil Lady, I think she was credited as in the booklet. But let's see if I'm correct in that. Not that it really matters, or she's named in the movie at all. Devil Lady, Demon Woman, however you want to characterize her, played by Pauline Wong, who played the female vampire in Vampire Family, Mr. Vampire 2. And she looks completely different in this one. She's a wild, kind of barbaric, kind of really cool villain, actually. I think she injected so much personality and a kind of animalistic, kind of primal danger to this character. I really enjoyed her performance. And even there's a kind of portion of the film where she's been transformed slightly, and even with this kind of melted, like her eye is kind of coming out of her face, basically, she still looks kind of beautiful like that. I don't know, there's something about her, and she really makes the film, I think, as this kind of enigma of a villain for these characters to come up against. And I won't go through all the ins and outs of the plot, because a lot of things go on with all the many characters, but essentially Richard Ng is the Taoist priest who's kind of gone the wrong way, and Lam Ching-ying is the unibrowed Taoist priest who's just a total badass and he's the shit, basically. And those two characters kind of come together, and they've got to fight together to take on this supernatural threat. And amidst that, you have the two ghosts, who I really liked. It was kind of a sweet relationship between Richard Ng and these two ghosts who had he'd befriended and coerced into being his conman brothers, I suppose, his kind of cohorts. And there's a moment in the film where Richard Ng's like, right, that's it. We have to go our separate ways. Like, this whole charade has gone on far too long. You're ghosts, you're dead, I'm the living, and it's like the well, it may be not quite so bad, but it made me think of like when like a dog owner, has to leave the dog on the side of the road or something, and as the dog owner is leaving, the dog is like, where are you going? Because he tells them flat out, we've got to go our separate ways. And the two ghosts are kind of like, okay. And they keep following him. And they're like lost puppies, they've been cast aside. And I really felt bad for them. And the young boy, I'm pretty certain, is the one who played the little boy vampire in Mr. Vampire 2. But yeah, I kind of like that kind of the relationship going on there. Now, as far as like the way the supernatural elements manifest themselves in this film, visually and orally, incredible. Like, I loved the cinematography, I loved the choreography. There's a lot more action in this film compared to the previous one. And I loved the special effects. There's some like actual like optical effects going on here, which there's a bit of that in Mr. Vampire 2, but it's really ramped up in this one. Of course, this is set in, not in present day, so it's a bit more of a period film. But I enjoyed that setting, and there's just some real, like, some of the atmospheric stuff, even at the beginning, and that's kind of the funny twist at the beginning, is when you see Richard Ung go in to kind of take out these ghosts, and he's fighting the two ghosts, but then you realize that they're really working together. It's like a wrestling match, they're working. And but then the real ghosts show up, and that's when all hell kicks off. And that was really fun. But that scenario in that house with like the smoke and the lighting and the slow motion, loved all that stuff, and the sound is really important too. Like, there's just something about, both the screams of these characters, the roars, and like the, just the spooky atmospheric stuff. And then there's a lot of comedy in the film too. I think a lot of that comes from Billy Lau, who plays, a similar character than he did in the previous film. He's working under Lam Ching-ying, and he's kind of the ringleader of his disciples, and he's a very brash, obnoxious, annoying character, and yet somehow I really enjoy watching him on screen, even those big, like, Coke bottle glasses. Like, he just, I don't know, there's something about him that draws me in. Like, he's a really interesting actor, and therefore his character is interesting to me, and it's fun to watch him get his comeuppance, and yet you still kind of root for him in a way, I suppose. So he brings a lot of the comedic elements, as does Richard Ung, who is, from what I've seen, naturally a comedic performer. And I know that he, I don't know if he started out, I guess he did technically start out kind of acting and performing in the UK and doing comedy stuff, and that kind of clearly informed his, and I think it was a commentary I'd heard or something, and they talked about how, because he started in the UK and that British style of humor, he was much more, it's easier for him, or was easier for him, he recently passed away sadly, to make fun of himself or put himself in stupid situations, or have egg on his face basically, than maybe the typical actor in Hong Kong. So he's game to kind of, get stuck in there and make himself look like a bit more of a fool than maybe some of the other actors. But, and not to say that he looks like a fool the whole time. And I liked his progression. You could almost see there's a bit of a change going on in him throughout this whole thing, which made the film more enjoyable to me, that there was actually an arc to follow for him. And there's this sequence, and the film never really recovers from it. There's a sequence in the first maybe 20 minutes of the film when our heroes, Lam Ching-ying and his disciples, they go and fight the horse thieves in the woods. And this sequence is just batshit mental, and I loved every single second of it. They're fighting these guys, and suddenly, like, their swords just have no effect on them whatsoever. Now the supernatural stuff has to start coming in. And there's comedic stuff going on. There are these kind of sight gags. There are these genuinely incredible, like, martial arts stuff going on. Lam Ching-ying, you can see, is really doing a lot of this stuff as well. I don't know too much about him, but I'm really excited to get to learn more about him through the extras on this release. And I don't want to spoil too much, but there's some really, like, just jaw-dropping stuff in that sequence alone. And I do feel like it's the strongest sequence in the film. But, the film really, towards the third act, has got there's so many little set piece moments, and it all funnels into this just wonderful, like, climactic set piece and final fight and show. And it really feels like the whole, like, last 30 minutes of the film is just a series of final showdowns, but there's just so many great little moments in there. There's a portion where the closest thing to a vampire, I guess, in the film is when two of the disciples get possessed. And so now they're kind of walking in a bit like zombies, not so much like vampires, but they're walking on their tiptoes. And they figure out then that there must be ghosts controlling them. And they actually show you a shot of like, it is, you literally see the ghosts as if they have to physically do it, you know, where they're like holding them up and they're walking on their feet, and they show you that with like this kind of glowing optical effect. I thought that there's little details like that were really fun. And, you know, I could really just talk about lots of little things that I liked in the film, but I don't want to kind of spoil too much or just, you know, be sat here just talking about what happened for the whole video. But I thought it was great. I really, really enjoyed it. Richard Ng is quickly becoming a new, well, yeah, I say a new favorite of mine in these films. I can't wait to see more of him in other Hong Kong movies. Lam Ching-ying, once again, he has this presence that is just, it's one of those things you can't really teach. Someone either has it or they don't, and he undeniably had it, and he just really holds the film together with his presence, I think. And then Pauline Wong, I think, kind of takes the whole film in terms of like being that focal point of antagonism, I suppose. She's this villain who, I don't know, every time she's on screen, I'm just captivated. I want to see more of her. And when she kind of goes through the transformation, it makes it even more interesting and more like, you know, you're wondering what's going to go on. And the added element of the two ghosts who are kind of like friendly characters, like there's just lots of really cool moving parts in the film, and I thought it was great. There's also a really fun dinner scene that's full of kind of director / actor cameos. There's Sammo Hung, there's Wu Ma, Corey Yun. So it's just like, oh, it's like literally a director's roundtable in this little kind of dinner scene, which is kind of fun. So the film has a little bit of everything, I think, and I just, you know, again, I find myself feeling like I'm just going to be sat here talking about, well, this bit was good, this bit was good, this bit was good. Yeah, no real critiques, you know. Was it better than Mr. Vampire 2? Probably as a film, I think so. But I enjoyed Mr. Vampire 2 just a little bit more, I think. And it was funnier. But then I liked how this one was, this one almost could have been a great, just serious horror movie, I think. And there's some cool, you know, there's some cool practical makeup stuff going on. Like, it's just, yeah, it has a lot going for it, but it undeniably has that heavy lean into comedy at the same time. But I think that, for me, that kind of works. I don't know whether I'm just becoming more acclimatized to that Hong Kong comedy style, or whether I just kind of enjoy the kind of brash, outlandish nature of it that just catches me off guard sometimes and really makes me laugh, because I'm just not expecting where they're going with it. Do you know what I mean? It's just one of those things. Anyway, Mr. Vampire 3, loved it. Absolutely loved it. I'm just really excited about these films because I wasn't expecting that much. And now I just feel like I have to go back to the original. I have to go back to Mr. Vampire and check that out once I'm done with this set. But that's exciting too. It would be like an interesting reverse order in a way. And perhaps I'm saving the best to last. Anyway, that's it for now. Thank you for watching. Let me know if you've seen it, what you think of the film, or what your thoughts are on any of the other Mr. Vampire films, or anything else that's related to what I'm talking about in the video. And I'll see you in the next one.